Welcome everybody to our ApplicantStack onboarding webinar. We're excited to have you with us today. And personally, this is one of my favorite products to demo. I think it's really exciting for businesses who haven't used a product such as this. It can just be really beneficial to your business. So we're really looking forward to showcasing this product, and we're going to wait a couple minutes as is customary just to let a few stragglers log in, and we will begin the demonstration shortly. All right, again, thank you all for being with us today. This is our ApplicantStack onboarding webinar. My name is Brandon Peterson. I'm an account manager with ApplicantStack. And we're also joined on the call, and you'll hear from Ellen and Carol, two other account managers who'll be helping with the questions. We also want to thank Lauren from our marketing department for putting this call together. We're so grateful that you've all joined us today. And again, I was saying that this is one of my favorite products to demonstrate. I think it really can build value for your business and streamline your processes and save you a lot of time. And also, it puts a good show towards your new hires as a product that makes the onboarding process much more streamlined and simple for them as well. So if you have already decided to use onboarding, or if you're here to learn more about it, we are going to demonstrate how it's used and how everything's structured within onboarding. So we'll go ahead and jump into that. If you have onboarding active, you will see an icon in the top right corner of ApplicantStack right here. We call it the waffle icon or the 9 square icon. And so you would log in normally as you would to ApplicantStack Recruit. And then by clicking on this, you can toggle to onboarding. But before I switch to onboarding, I want to start in Recruit because that's where the process starts. So once you've decided to hire a candidate and you're moving through your candidate workflow, the last piece to that workflow is going to be the hired stage. And it's at the hired stage that a candidate is pushed from Recruit into onboarding. They'll become an inactive candidate in Recruit and become a new candidate in onboarding. Now, if you want to use a different stage in your workflow to push a candidate to onboarding, that is something that we can customize for you. Just put in a support ticket and we can help you do that. But by default, it's going to be the hired stage. So if I open up Han Solo here, and we're simulating that we've already gone through all the stages of vetting him and interviewing him, and now we're ready to hire him. So I'm going to go ahead and click Hired, and we will be asked to select a default onboarding workflow and a default onboarding manager. So you might have multiple workflows depending on different types of job jobs that you have, and you might have multiple onboarding managers that you want managing the onboarding process for that candidate. So it's at this point that you could assign that. So I'm going to go ahead and confirm the stage change. And now the candidate has moved to onboarding. So at this point, I will toggle over to onboarding now to see Han Solo. On the front screen here, we'll see a pipeline summary of our candidates and our hires. We can see the different stages here, the new stage, paperwork stage, orientation, training, and how many hires we have in each of those stages. So that can be a good at-a-glance reference for where we're at with all these people. So now I'll go to the hired stage, and let's see. We're going to use Will Smith here. So when Will Smith comes into, let's see, hold on. When Will Smith comes into the new stage, there won't be any paperwork assigned to them. It's not until we push them to the paperwork stage that that happens. And when we do that, a message will be sent to Will Smith, and that will invite them to access the hire portal, which will include a URL, their username, and a temporary password for them to log in. So since we're demoing this, let's see what that's going to look like from the candidate's perspective. So if we look at the hiring portal, this is what they will see once they log in. Will Smith here is, it shows his basic contact information, also the manager's basic information, and some basic information about the job, and then tasks that have been assigned to him. Now, in this demo, we've used this candidate before, so some have already been completed, but we have a few here that haven't been completed. All right. So I'm going to close this out. Now that you've seen what it looks like, excuse me, one more thing. So when we go into the tasks, from the candidate's perspective, we just click on Start Task, and it'll bring up the task for that candidate, and they can fill that out. Here's another example, and you can see here, one of my favorite features of ApplicantStack Onboarding is that it auto-populates much of the information that we've already collected from Recruit. So in this first name field for this candidate, we have that already pre-populated, so they don't have to auto-fill that. Other fields that can be auto-populated could be social security number, address, phone number, the job title, etc. So that can really make this process much easier for the candidate. I know when I've onboarded for new companies, it can be frustrating to put in your name 5 times and put in your social security multiple times. It's just not a good look. So by using these autofill features, that can be quite helpful. All right, so now that I've shown you what it can look like from the candidate's perspective, I want to show you the building blocks to get there. Okay, so the building blocks to get this all set up and automated starts in the library. So I'm going to go to the library. And in the library, we have 6 different types of library items. We have form templates, which is probably what we'll use the most. The form templates are PDF style documents, and you can think of those similar to like a DocuSign type setup. We're filling out the forms, we can sign them, and save those documents to the hires record. But we also have a few other items here that would need to be built in order to create our workflow. So we have questionnaires. Questionnaires are a nice shortcut to forms. So if we don't need an official PDF style form, but we just need simple information from the candidate, a questionnaire can be a handy tool. And some of the examples you see here are emergency contact information, maybe a getting to know you questionnaire, a uniform sizing worksheet. So these are things that we don't necessarily need to make a form for, but we do want that information. And so a questionnaire can be a great shortcut to getting that. Next, we have messages. So if you're familiar with ApplicantStack Recruit, you'll be familiar with messages. These are the emails or text messages that we would be sending out to communicate to the candidate what a next step is or what needs to happen. So one standard message here would be the welcome to the hiring process email. So I'm going to open that and show you what that looks like. This is what the candidate would receive once they enter the paperwork stage. And you can see here we're using some codes, merge codes, similar to what we might see on the recruit side. So merge codes allow us to personalize the message for that particular candidate. So it's going to pull from their record, enter their name so that we're addressing them by name and so that it feels more personalized. So in this message, the candidate's going to be addressed by their name. We look forward to having you join our team. And then we give them the information to access that portal that we showed you using the example of Will Smith. So the login URL will be specific to your account. And then the username is going to be the email provided by the candidate. And the temporary password will be a random password that's been assigned to them. So they'll need to use that, copy and paste that the first time they log in, and then they'll be asked to create their own password to log in. Other messages that you might want to include would be maybe a reminder or a paperwork complete message telling them that they've completed all their paperwork. So those are very helpful. All right, tasks. These can be assigned either to the candidate or to the hiring manager, the person who is the ApplicantStack user who is processing that candidate. So these can help you stay organized and make sure that every candidate is going through the same process and that all those boxes are being checked. So we showed you the example earlier of the questionnaire for the uniform sizing. And so here in the tasks, we have an example of ordering that uniform. So that is going to be assigned to the user, and that's something that they'll need to check off in their process to make sure that that uniform has been ordered for the candidate so that it arrives in a timely manner. Other examples could be ordering a name badge, or if you need some kind of printed form, we might want to make a physical copy of our digital forms. Those might be wanted to be printed and filed away. Those are types of to-do items that we can make tasks out of. So once we've done all those things and bundled them and organized that foundation of our workflow, the next level up is to create a checklist out of those things. And so as we open up the checklist, I can go in here and use the edit shortcut. And we'll see here on the left column are the tasks and forms that are available for our checklist, okay? So we give the checklist a name, and then we organize that checklist. So again, on the left column, these are the ones available from the library. And on the right column are the actual forms and tasks that we have assigned to our checklist. And so we can make changes here just by clicking and dragging over. We can reorder them if we want them to be in a certain order. And once that's done, then we save that. Okay, let's put a thumbnail in that checklist piece. And then we'll also look at supporting documents. So supporting documents can be helpful if you need to send a form to a candidate that doesn't need to be signed off, but they just need to have that information. An example of this might be a benefits guide or an employee handbook. We might have a single page document that is an employee handbook acknowledgement, but we might not want them to have to open up a 70-page document with all of our procedures as a form because the performance might not be great. So we want to attach those as a supporting document separately and then have them sign that they've some kind of acknowledgement that they've received that. All right, so once the checklist is complete, now we want to add that to our workflow. And this is where the automation starts to happen as we build up those layers. So to access the workflow, I'll go to the Head and Shoulders icon here, click on Setup, and go to Configure, and we will go to the Hire Workflow. Now, these workflow stages can be set. We can add stages, we can take away stages, and we can reorder these stages. In my example here, we have the new stage, as I mentioned earlier, and it's just a dummy stage. It's just a holding stage, nothing happens, no automations. It's where the candidate will enter when they're moved from recruit. So then the hiring manager would open up their hires tab, see those candidates, and open up their profile and move them to the paperwork stage. Now, once they enter the paperwork stage, then we do start to see some of those automations. So a couple of the automations we've set here are obviously the welcome to the hiring process message that we talked about earlier. That's going to be a very important piece to send to them so that they can access the portal and access the checklist that's been assigned to them. So I can just click on this or hover over it to see a quick glimpse of what that message entails. But again, this will be sent automatically once the candidate enters the paperwork stage. Now, if that's all that happened, they would just get a message, they'd open up the portal, and they'd have nothing there. So we need to make sure that we attach that, that checklist as well. And we can edit this by clicking on the Edit Workflow stage. A pop-up appears, and now we're faced with all the settings of that individual stage. Here we can set the messages. We can even have multiple messages and send them out on a cadence if we'd like. And you can see here we have the template checklist. We can add one checklist per stage. And so here I've already added the new hire forms checklist. Additionally, we can set individual user settings. So we might want certain users notified. We might want certain users to be owners of this particular stage, and we can set that here. Lastly, we can set fields that need to be entered when the candidate enters this stage. If you have to ask them a question or have them fill out something or make a note, we can have them do that here as well. Okay, so once the candidate has, once we've built these layers, again, starting from the library and then the checklist and then adding it to the workflow, then we're good to go. We can move those candidates into the paperwork stage and they'll be assigned that paperwork and whatever we've added to the checklist. So let's dive a little bit deeper into how we build out the forms, because that's often a very common question, and from the outset it can be a bit time consuming, but it's going to save you a lot of time in the long run. So thankfully, ApplicantStack provides a lot of the federal and state forms. We maintain a library of those. So for example, the federal government issued a new I-9 this year. And so we have gone ahead and updated that. We can import that into your account. So there's no need for you to manage those types of forms. If you don't have the updated form in your account, we can, if you just put in a support ticket, then one of us account managers or someone with technical support can add that to your account to get that updated. So let's look at one of these forms and how it's configured. I'm going to use the I-9 2023 as an example. Now I can click here on the title to see the form, and then I can edit it from here, or I can use the edit shortcut to go directly to the edit page. So like I said, this form has already been configured for us, so that's great. But let's dig a little bit deeper and see how that's done. So if I wanted to add a new field, then I would select from one of these shortcuts on the left. We have single line text, multi-line text, signature field, dates, drop downs, multiple choice checkboxes, labels, and files. The most common ones you'll use are probably signature and single line text. So let's look at that. If I want to add a new single line text field, then I would just click here and drag it over. Okay. So I can drag it onto here. I can resize it by hovering over the edge of the boundary of that field. And that can just pretty it up and make it align with the form itself. Now, once I've inserted that field, then I can click on Edit, and we have multiple settings for each of these fields. The name can be assigned. That's more of an internal facing setting. It's not, the candidate's not going to see that name. And so if you want to rename it, you can. Otherwise, ApplicantStack will just assign it a field number in sequence. I can change the type of field. Even though I use the shortcuts on the left, I can change them here as well. I can change it to a signature field if I'd like, or a date, or any of these options. I can make it a required field. So that's probably going to be the most common type of field. We are going to require the candidate to fill out a certain field. But sometimes if the field is an optional or maybe like an other type field, where there are situations where they might not put any data there, we wouldn't want to make that required because they wouldn't be able to proceed if they didn't put any data in that field. We have some validation options. This is some logic that's been built into ApplicantStack to make sure that the candidate is putting in the right type of data. So if it's a number, then it's only going to accept integers 0 through 9. Now, phone number is going to accept integers, but it's only going to accept 10 of those because a phone number is 10 digits. And on with Social Security. We got a Canadian version of Social Security number, email, and date. So that can help you on the back end to avoid having to deal with forms that are filled out incorrectly by the candidates to help avoid typos. The comb is not seen very often, but sometimes on physical forms, you'll see where they create a box on the form for each character that you're putting in. They space them out so it's more readable. And so if that's the type of form you're using, then we can use the comb function and identify how many blocks there are so that that aligns on the form. All right, next we have autofill. And this is one of the big key pieces to using onboarding and being able to save you a lot of time here. So by using the autofill, we click here on the show merge codes, and we're faced with certain fields that are considered hire data. This is data that ApplicantStack Onboarding is pulling from their recruit record. So we've got the name, which would be their full name, or we can choose from their first name, last name, who's assigned as their mentor, email, address, etc. So by autofilling these, you not only save time for the candidate and make it a smooth process for them, but you're also saving you time because you're reducing the risk of there being error from the candidate and then having to fix all of that. If we create custom fields in Recruit, custom hire fields, then it will also create a merge code in onboarding for us. We can also merge in account data, so information about your company name, your company address. And then there's general data like the date, day of the week, that kind of thing that can be auto-filled as well. Next, we have a tooltip. That's just a bit of a hint. If you have a field that might be confusing to some users, we can put a hint in here. I've also seen it used to put in other languages so that it explains to people who aren't speaking English as their first language. We could put a tooltip in here in the different language. And next we have the form group. So this is whose responsibility is it to fill out this certain field. Since we're looking at the field settings, then this is on the field level, whose job is it? And if we select the hire, then it's going to be the hire's responsibility. If we select the employer, then it's going to be the employer's responsibility to fill out that field, and the hire will not have access to that. Okay, so that's how we edit fields within a form. And once we do all of that, then we are left with a beautiful form like this I-9 that we've already created. We can see here under the last name that it's using the autofill feature, as I mentioned, and that it's the hire's responsibility. We can also see here down at the bottom of page 1 that we have this field that is now the employer's responsibility. So the hire will not have access to these fields, only the employer once the hire has completed their portion. So back to the Hires tab, we'll see what it looks like when an employee has filled out their piece. Once the hire has completed, or excuse me, backing up. So these are hire tasks that Will Smith still needs to complete. We saw those when we looked at the when we looked at the hiring portal. If these forms also have an employer field, then once Will Smith completes his piece, they will show up as user tasks. And so these are forms here that would be assigned to the user or the hiring manager that need to be completed. Next, we have completed forms. So when both parties have completed everything that needs to be done, we will see here those completed forms, and we see when they were done and by whom. If we want to view that form, we can click on the View PDF and see that form completed. We also have a section for completed questionnaires, assigned supporting documents, and then down here at the bottom, we have a great audit trail. So we have the emails that were sent and when they were sent. This can help with troubleshooting. If a candidate says that they haven't received an email, we can come here and see if it was sent or not. And then we also have a history. This can be helpful, again, for troubleshooting. We can see when candidates were moved to different stages. And it can also help if you have a large organization, you might have a recruiting manager and then recruiters below them. This can be helpful to see when those recruiters that you manage have been moving people along and how effective they're being in that process. So that wraps up our demo. Again, this product is so helpful when it's such a change from having candidates come in, fill out a stack of paperwork, which can be very time consuming. By using onboarding, you can have them complete all of this prior to them coming in for onboarding or orientation. And so it can save you a lot of time, can save you a lot of headache, and it also helps create a higher chance that that candidate's going to have everything they need on day one. So at the end of our call, you're going to be receiving a survey. We want you to fill that out and give us feedback on this demonstration if it's helpful. And we'll also take some questions now. If you have any questions about onboarding or even recruit questions, if you'd like, we can answer those. And I think Ellen is going to be helping with those questions. So we'll go ahead and move on to the question section of our webinar.
Yeah, I am here, Brandon. Can you hear me?
Can, yes.
Yeah, okay, great job. Yes, there are a couple questions that have already been input, but certainly if anyone out there has additional questions, please do so through that question template or that question panel. And your questions don't have to be on just ApplicantStack onboarding. They can be on anything ApplicantStack Recruit and ApplicantStack onboarding. And Brandon, you had mentioned this, but I'm just going to say it again. I read an article recently that the onboarding process impacts the new hire in regard to his or her view of the company for which they're starting to work for. So if the onboarding process is smooth, that means your new hire is going to have a very positive outlook on the organization for which they're working. And that's a point to make, because you certainly don't want a negative impact on a new hire. And if a new hire does not get that warm and fuzzy feeling through the onboarding process. You certainly don't want that individual to leave and then you have to go through the recruiting process again. So I think we'll all agree with Brandon that onboarding and an efficient onboarding process like he just showed you is a very positive thing to a new hire. That was just my plug, Brandon.
Thank you. Amen. I love that.
Let's get to, and there's some statistics associated with that. I just don't have them off the top of my head. But let's go ahead and get to the questions. And Brandon, will you go back to your homepage, please, for onboarding? Because the first question has to do with the I-9, and you mentioned it. There's a new I-9 out there. The current I-9 is effective until 10/31, but yes, we do have that new I-9 available, and you can submit a ticket. And actually, I think customers might be able to import the new I-9 on their own as well.
They can, yeah, they can use the import form, and they're given access to these below here. Those are only access to me, available to me as an account manager, but these top three, I believe, are available to all users.
Right. So the I-9 would be, yep, deemed a federal form, and you can import that I-9 into your onboarding library yourself. There's going to be an Ask Me Anything about this, so I'm kind of gonna, I don't know, rain on that parade. But if you do have the new I-9 imported, don't forget to archive your old I-9 and add your new I-9 to your checklists. All right. First question, Brandon, is this recorded? I would like to go over it again. Yes, it is recorded, and you'll be getting a follow-up email, and the recording link will be part of that email. The other thing, and I'm just jumping in here, Brandon, if you go to the Help Center as well, by clicking on the white question mark in the upper right-hand corner, this is a little bit more to answer your question, Sue. And if you search on onboarding in the search bubble there, one of the things that you'll see is demo ApplicantStack onboarding. Let's see where it's going to come up, that one. So you can also access the Help Center. This was a live onboarding demonstration that was recorded and then added to our Help Center. It was from December of 2022. So you have loads of resources in the ApplicantStack Help Center that you can access as well.
And while we're here, I'll also add for new users, there's the Getting Started guide and the Hiring Manager's guide for onboarding that are found here as well, just on the front page of the Help Center.
Yeah. All right. Next question, Brandon, is we have a custom job board skin. Can we brand the new hire portal? So the answer to that, you want me to just keep going, Brandon?
Yeah, go ahead and take that one.
Okay, sure. Is we can brand your new hire portal a little bit with your logo. So Brandon, if you click on home, yep, and then if you click on update settings, and as a customer, you can do the same thing that Brandon is doing here. This is not limited to just account management functionality. You as a customer can do this as well. So you'll notice on the settings page, if you scroll all the way down, Brandon, you'll see the gray bar entitled Hire Portal. And it's there that you can modify. Yeah, click on that, View Hire Portal, Brandon, if you would, please.
Is this what you're wanting?
It is what I want. So it's there that you can modify that portal message, and you can see, obviously what it is now is welcome to Brandon demo, but you can modify that. You can make that unique to your organization and share any information that you want to with your new hires. But then you'll also notice you do have the ability to choose a file to upload your logo so that there is that bit of branding on your new hire portal, and you can even align that logo. So again, it would be, this is an ApplicantStack administrator function. So you would have to be an ApplicantStack administrator in order to access settings and then modify your portal instructions and upload a logo if you want. Carol or Brandon, do you have anything to add on that?
I do not. Thank you, Matt.
That's great.
Okay. All right. Next question. We are a seasonal business and rehire a number of employees every year. What's the best process to do that?
Okay, so the best way to do that is to just use the existing hire record. So if you already have somebody who's been hired, let me see here. If I have any completed hires. I don't. All right, so when a hire is complete, they're going to be 100%, right? They're going to have completed all of their forms. And so if Michael Turner has been now terminated and he's coming back, then I can assign the same checklist to him manually without having to move him through all the stages. And so I would do that by going to his hire record, and then I would add a checklist and select the checklist that needs to be added. So it's going to create duplicates of all those forms, but once he completes them, you'll now have a new date for those forms when they're completed so that you're compliant with state and federal regulations. If we try to create a duplicate, then sometimes we run into problems. It is possible to do, but I would recommend just using the same hire record and having them fill out the forms again. Is that what you would do, Carol? I mean, Ellen, excuse me.
Yes, you have that option to do, resend them documents again. And just as a little bit of background, the email address of your candidate and recruit and your hire in onboarding is what we call the unique identifier. So if you try to move a candidate from recruit to onboarding and that individual is already in onboarding with the same email address, they're not going to move over. So we see a lot of tickets that say, hey, I moved Susie Smith from recruit to onboarding. I put her in the hired stage in recruit, but she's not moving over to onboarding. Well, if Susie Smith is already in onboarding with the same email address, she is not going to move to onboarding. So as Brandon said, you can go back to the original Susie Smith record in onboarding, resend whatever documents you need to. And you would probably want to email Susie saying, hey, I'm resending you documents. So that is one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is if you want a net new hire record in onboarding, is go back to that original Susie Smith record, change her email address to something like add a 1 to the end of it or something like that, and then move her from recruit to onboarding for the second time. So it's totally up to you as to how you want to do it. What we don't suggest, however, is that you delete the original new hire record, because you always want that audit trail. You always want that history. So I would suggest one of those two options that Brandon and I just described.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next question from Terry is, where can I find the onboarding manual?
Well, like we showed you a second ago, the Help Center is going to give you lots of resources for that kind of thing. So if you go to the white question mark here and go to Help Center, then you're going to find the Getting Started Guide and the Hiring Manager's Guide. If you click on the Getting Started Guide, you'll have multiple topics that you can drill into. So if I click on Home tab, it's going to give me more detailed explanation of how to use the Home tab. If I click on creating a new hire, it's going to give me more detailed instructions about how to do that. So that's where I would start. If your organization is already using onboarding and you have a new hire that's like a new office person who's going to be doing recruiting, then I would have them start with these Getting Started guides. They can be very helpful.
And running a candidate through the recruit process, move them to hired, have them access onboarding, and move through the onboarding stages. So as new hire, or if you want to train somebody, you can do that with a test candidate, use a personal email, and then experience ApplicantStack Recruit and ApplicantStack Onboarding. And what might be triggered at certain stages as you move candidates through and hires through those stages. All right. Oh, we got a thank you from Terry. Or you did, Brandon, I guess I should
Good.
say.
You're welcome, Terry.
All right. Next question is, what if the candidate we want to hire isn't in ApplicantStack Recruit? Can I hire them in onboarding or add
Great.
them to onboarding?
Great question. Yes, you can start fresh just within onboarding. You don't need to move them from Recruit. However, you won't have a application on file inside ApplicantStack, so you might want to consider still starting them in Recruit. But to your point, yes, you can start fresh just from onboarding, and you do that by coming to the Hires tab, and you'll see here on the action menu on the right, there's an option to add a hire. And so here we just fill out the candidate's name, and down at the bottom, we assign which workflow they need to be a part of. In my demo, I just have the one workflow, but we can assign them to a different workflow if we have it. Which stage we're going to start them in. So if I wanted to, I could start them right away in the paperwork stage, and it would trigger that that welcome to the hiring process message if we use this, if we check this box here, and also who the hiring manager is going to be. And once we submit that, then we have that hire living in onboarding. Great question.
All right, and yet another question. You talked about importing the I-9 form. How do we upload our forms?
Oh yeah, we did skip over that. Okay, so to add your own form, we would go to the library, and it's going to default to the form templates section of the library. But if you're not there already, then you can toggle back to the form templates. And in the top right, you'll see add form. So we click on that, we give it a name, and then we just use the file picker here to pick the file off of our desktop. We'll click here, and it's going to bring us up a file picker to find that form. Now it does need to be in a PDF format. Some PDFs already have some of these fields formatted. So ApplicantStack will recognize some of them. You probably will still need to go field by field to define some of those settings, but you might not need to drag and drop the fields over. An example of that is the I-9. So if you were to download the I-9 from the federal government's website, oftentimes those fields are already in there, but they do need to be defined specifically for ApplicantStack. So you'd go field by field to do that. Once you upload the form, then you're going to be presented by, let's see here. You'll be presented by this screen. So if this was the form I just uploaded, we'll be presented with this. And then we would go one by one by, excuse me, I'm wrong. This is not the edit page. So we would be presented with the edits page like this once the form has been uploaded. And then we would just go field by field and make sure that everything is formatted the way we need it to be. And then once we're done, then we would save that.
Excellent. All right. It looks like those are all of the questions that have been submitted. Again, do remember you can ask any question you want to. It doesn't have to be on onboarding. Brandon, while we see if any other questions are submitted, want to just review the announcements panel and what's going on with future webinars?
Yeah, so here in the announcements section on the home screen, we're announcing a few future webinars. So here's today's, but we also have a recruit webinar coming up on October 24th next month. And we have an Ask Me Anything next week, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Don't see, oh, and those are, the details are here. So join us for Ask Me Anything. We can click on the details to register for that if we want to be a part of the Ask Me Anything. If you haven't attended an Ask Me Anything before, it's a much shorter demo. We usually demonstrate a feature of ApplicantStack and drill into the details of that, and the demonstration will last 10 or 15 minutes, and then we use the rest of the time to answer your questions, whatever they might be regarding ApplicantStack. Those can be really helpful, particularly for new users. If you have somebody new in your office that is new to ApplicantStack, it might be helpful for them to attend these for the first few months.
All right, and then the final request I have of you, Brandon, is just, we had talked about submitting a technical support ticket. Do you mind just walking through those steps, please?
Yes, happy to. So to submit a technical support ticket, this would be either if you notice a bug, or if you need additional training, or if you simply just need to contact your account manager with questions. The best way to do that is by going to this orange box with the white question mark. And we already showed you the Help Center, which is our knowledge base, but instead to put in a support ticket, you would choose the option to ask a question. And you'll be brought to our form here, fill out your information. If you are part of a greater organization with franchises or branches, be sure to put that in here so that we can identify which account you're with. And then in the description, just try to be as specific as possible. If you are having trouble with a particular candidate or a particular hire, then it's really helpful to actually put their name in there, because then we can research it on the back end and give you a more thorough answer that can help us get you the support you need quicker, so we don't have to have back and forth emails. And then additionally, our favorite types of support tickets are those that also include examples with screenshots. That also can be really helpful. A picture is really worth 1,000 words in this case. We can see things that that you might not be thinking about if you put in a screenshot, if you know how to do that. So this is where you would do that, and then you would just submit it. And depending on your account, they are routed directly to your account manager. So that is an excellent way to get a hold of us.
Great. Brandon, I do not see any more questions coming in.
Okay. Well, thank you, Ellen, for helping with the questions. And thank you all for attending. Again, if you want to sign up for onboarding, or even just want to do a trial, put in a support ticket as we just showed you. It'll be routed to your account manager, and we can activate that trial for you. We can do additional training for you, again, if you have new users. And the cost for onboarding is only $33 a month, or excuse me, I'm speaking of a different product, I'm sorry. You want to go over the pricing for me, Ellen?
Yeah, generally, just as a general pricing, adding onboarding to a recruit-only account is an increase of about 40%. And if there are pricing questions, account managers can certainly field those individually. And again, the best way to do that would be to get in touch with your account manager via the technical support ticket submittal process. But as a rough estimate, it's about a 40% increase in what a recruit-only account is currently paying.
Okay. Again, if you want to try it out, we can do a free trial for you. Please, it is very helpful for us if you answer those survey questions following this call. It can help us modify these calls and make sure that you're getting the support you need and make them just helps us do our job better. So thank you again all for your attendance, and we hope to see you on our next webinar. Have a good day.
Thanks, Brandon.